do you just believe the universe is a brute fact?
The universe is an easier brute fact to accept than a conscious creator.
Well, who made it?
It's you who insists on asking that question.
No, you asked me who made the creator. The universe created you, Richard. Who made it then?
When you look at history, and let's leave aside, maybe I alluded to the possibility that some historians think Jesus never existed. I take that back. Jesus existed. However, if you're going to say that Jesus was born of a virgin, that Jesus walked on water, that he turned water into wine, that is palpably anti-scientific. There is no evidence for that. And if there were, you would be, well, I mean, no, there simply isn't any evidence for that, and no scientist could possibly take the idea seriously.
I can make it worse for you.
I know you can.
Because Jesus actually claimed to be the Logos that created the whole universe. And if this is the creator incarnate, making water into wine and so on is really a triviality. The more fundamental thing is the fact that he claimed to be and gave evidence that he was God. When you say it's anti-scientific, I don't think it's anti-scientific at all. Science cannot say that miracles do not occur. It can say they're highly improbable. But nobody is claiming that these things occurred by natural processes. They occurred because God fed his power in. Nor did the whole universe, if we look at it, occur in that sense by natural processes. God created it. We study all the natural processes within it. So when you say it's anti-scientific, I think it's not anti-scientific.
What I mean by that is that if and when doing science, we constantly have to keep in mind that at any moment there might be a little magic trick slipped in. That would completely nullify the whole enterprise of science.
Oh, I agree with that. But
well,
you see,
but that's what you're allowing then.
No, I'm not allowing that at all, because in order to recognize what the New Testament calls miracle, a special act of God, you must be living in a universe that has regularities and that we recognize them. I agree with you entirely.
Otherwise you wouldn't notice the miracles. But
that's exactly true. Yeah. You wouldn't recognize if dead people were popping up all over the place. You wouldn't think it was very special. But the fact is you need two things, not one. You've got to have regularities which we call the laws of nature, although they're not causes. They're in a sense descriptions that we can use. You also need to be able to recognize those so that, for example, when Joseph discovered that his wife-to-be Mary was pregnant, he simply didn't believe her story. He was going to divorce her. He knew exactly where babies came from. He knew the regularity. It took very special convincing for him to realize that something extremely special had happened. But science cannot stop that. The question is, of course, did such a thing ever happen? And the central focus in the New Testament is not that, which is not so readily accessible to evidence, the virgin conception, but the resurrection of Christ. And ancient historians, and it has fascinated me recently going over it, ancient historians whose discipline is very venerable, and I'm not talking about Christian ancient historians, ancient historians, many of them, even at the skeptical end of the spectrum, say that the evidence for the resurrection of Christ is very powerful. The explosion of the Christian church from a non-proselytizing group of Jews in the first century, the empty tomb and all the rest of it, has even led Geza Vermesh, who's one of the most distinguished ancient historians in Oxford, to say, yes, this tomb was empty, and hallucinations and this kind of explanation do not wash. So we have to ask ourselves, are we prepared to believe in historical testimony or not?
Well, you must talk to different historians than the ones I talk to. But in any case, I still come back to the point that you cannot do science if at any time you remember that famous cartoon of the...
Oh, I do. And therefore a miracle happens in the middle of the equation. Yes.
I mean, that is deeply against the spirit of science. And I don't think I could do science if I thought that at any time something like the resurrection, something like the virgin birth was going to be smuggled in by a godly caprice.
Let me stop you right there, gentlemen. We need now to move on to the last topic, and we haven't left ourselves a great deal of time here, and that's the issue of meaning, human life, and meaning and purpose and morality. You've kind of touched on morality just a bit, but it was only briefly. So let's move the conversation there, and then we'll have our Q&A.
He's brought us to a complete stop, hasn't he?
The T-Rex is warming up.
Yeah.
Well, we have talked a bit about
we have
morality.
talked a bit about meaning too, haven't we, really?
Well, meaning is something which obviously scientists like to find, and we like to find meaning in things. We like to understand things. And as I said before, brains are selected to be functional, to work well in the real world. And one of the things that makes them work well from a survival point of view is to find meaning and correct meaning, to interpret the facts of the world in a way which fits in with what's going to happen next, for example. So you don't jump over a cliff because you understand the meaning of jumping over a cliff is that you're going to die. So meaning is something that human brains appreciate, and meaning is something that scientists appreciate in a more sophisticated way.
So what is the ultimate meaning of life for you?
The ultimate meaning of life depends on what you mean by it, obviously. Each one of us can make an ultimate meaning. Each one of us can have a private meaning, a purpose in our life, what we hope to achieve in our life. Or a biologist might say the ultimate meaning of life is the propagation of genes. That would be a very different kind of meaning. They're both true.
I suppose the basic question for me here is, what is the nature of ultimate reality? If ultimate reality is simply the universe, in some sense, or multiverse, that's one thing. And I am at a loss to understand how you get from simple atoms, elementary particles, and so on, to a brain, let alone a mind, the I, the person. And we don't understand what consciousness is, and so on. I don't begin to see, and I don't think scientists begin to see, how you can get to something that even understands the concept of meaning. But I can understand it if behind the universe, the ultimate reality is not impersonal matter and energy that somehow has produced all this stuff bottom up. I can understand it if it's top down, as well as partly bottom up, and that is that there is a God who is personal, who is good, who is the source of life and meaning, and who reaches out to me as a person, and who, in fact, far from stopping me doing science, encourages the development of the mind that he has given me. And so meaning to me has all kinds of dimensions, as you would agree with, in my family, with my wife and my children and my work and so on. But it's not bounded by the 70 years and 10. It's not bounded by the death of the universe either. It's got an expanding horizon of hope. And that, to me, is the only thing that is worthy of the God that created this vast cosmos. That our lives are not going to be extinguished just like that. There is a beyond, and I can walk with confidence into that beyond because I have a real relationship that's got a firm basis with the God who invented it all. And therefore, it seems to me that the meaning given by atheism and reductionism is very, very tiny. Now, of course, you'll come back immediately and say it's a question of truth. Of course, it's a question of truth. But at least we can have a look at the different kinds of worlds that we represent. Because that business of it's tempting, it is terribly tempting. Do you ever get terribly tempted to believe that there is a God and that the kind of thing I'm saying is true?
I've said to you already that there are many things that would be very nice about it, but as you've just repeated, it doesn't make it true.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, you think you're going to survive your own death, I gather.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I mean, but so you think that even though your brain dies, something else. I mean, at what point in evolution did that remarkable faculty emerge?
I haven't a notion. It's part of God has created human beings in his image.
What on earth does that mean? In his image? Do you think he looks like us?
No. That we
then?
have personality, that it's an anthropomorphism. But we are persons. God is a person, and therefore we can relate to him. That's what the whole business is
a
about.
person? Was Homo erectus a person?
Well, I can't decide by looking at fossils whether there's a person or not.
But do you think it happened
are a
gradually?
person.
Do you think it happened gradually? I mean, or was there a moment when a child was born that was a person and its parents weren't?
My own feeling is that there was a point when God did something special, but it would be very hard to detect that from any scientific investigation.
So God suddenly kind of dived into the evolutionary process and said, right, from now on they're going to be persons.
Well, whether he dived into an evolutionary process or did it specially
is an open
question.
Or
I do believe in evolution as far as Darwin saw it, the variation and modification that we've been talking about. I'm not actually sure, but this is a vast topic now to begin.
Gentlemen, I think we digress.
Yeah. Okay.
The issue again is purpose.
I want to hear that ending. I want to hear whether he believes in evolution.
Well, I've said that I believe in what Darwin observed, but I'm not sure that the mechanism of mutation and natural selection can bear all the weight that's put on it. For example, producing consciousness and so on. I think there may be several points in the history of the universe where God did something special. But I'm not going to be over dogmatic on that tonight, because those aren't the places where I rest my faith in God.
Okay,